Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. We're excited that you've joined us as we have a conversation. We found that a good conversation allows us to share what's on our mind, whether current events, what's grinding our gears, or our pet peeves.
It also allows us to share our top 3, a list of our favorite things on any given subject, most of which are highly opinionated. In closing, we share a good word. Solid friendships are encouraging. Even if we joke and give each other a hard time, our ultimate responsibility is to uplift each other.
Our goal is that you'll feel like you're part of the conversation, like you were in the studio with us, and that you feel encouraged after tuning in to our podcast. It's time to join the conversation.
My name's Troy 3-Shot Trussell, and I'm here with my good friends Chet Sears and Matt Amos. Today, we are going to hear what is on Matt's mind. All right. And we're going to jump into a top 3. It's misconception about firearms.
Yeah, especially in the mainstream
Media.
As it pertains to them. And then Chet's going to end it with a good word. So I'm really anxious to hear what's on Matt's mind. But first, I want to remind everybody that we got some t-shirts and swag on sale. And Chet, you're wearing a shirt right now. Hardheaded Podcast shirt with our original logo on it.
Do we have another logo?
Well, that's the second logo. The original was just text.
Oh,
that one's got our fancy animated, well, not animated, but
Caricatures
that my uncle drew for us on there. So
yeah,
pretty cool. So check that out at hardheadedpodcast.com.
Hardheadedpodcast.com.
Hardheadedpodcast.com. www.hardheadedpodcast.com.
All right. Well, jump on into it, Matt. What's on your mind?
I tell you what's on my mind today.
Please.
As Troy gets up and leaves, it's like, he doesn't care what I have to say.
Yeah. Maybe he's got to handle some business.
Are you coming back? Because this is very important.
I'm here.
I want everybody to know and take this seriously.
I'm totally not doing that.
That just because there are possible food shortages, food's getting more expensive, there's stuff not appearing on the shelves, that a lot of these fires that everybody keeps talking about and dreaming up all these huge conspiracies, that they're all linked, or the government's doing it, or it's Russia.
Can't be a huge conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. You don't have to go too far.
Yeah. What I'm saying is the latest one is the one that got me, and it just kind of made me look a little bit deeper, I guess, into the overall situation of all these fires, which I think there's been around 30. And I don't remember the exact number, but I think that's kind of where we're at, is around 30 fires.
At the time of this recording, but by the time this thing is released, it's probably going to be like 300.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, and any of those are considered arson, that might be something to actually consider and take a really good look at.
I would agree.
But none of these fires have actually been linked back to arson. It's been faulty equipment or, but there's...
Wouldn't that be how you would make the fire happen? Is to not be arson?
But it's not like it's aged equipment or whatever. And at least these are the reports that are coming out from whatever fire bureau investigates this stuff.
I'm not an arsonist, but if I were, I would try to make it look
like an accident. Right.
Especially if you're like a part of a formal operation to take down the food system.
Right. Which I don't know. I don't think that that's the case. But the one thing that I do know is here in Kansas, southwest Kansas, we had recently where there were a lot of cattle that just died. And I have seen so many comments because Shapiro put a post about it, and then you got all these comments underneath, and it's like all these people that don't understand how animals work. Like there's just no common sense. Like it's got to be a conspiracy. This just doesn't seem right. They don't realize that happens all the time. And if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. Right?
Yeah.
So now that, now there's all these food shortages. So now this obviously has to be part of some sinister plot, which 10,000 cattle in Southwest Kansas is nothing. I mean, that's literally nothing. And for those out there who do not understand how that works, is these cattle get shipped into a feedlot, and it's a lot of animals. And when you have animals that are packing on weight to go to slaughter, you know, I forget what the exact or actual weight that they put on per day, but it's somewhere between like 3 and 5 pounds a day is what they're putting on. So imagine if you're putting on 3 to 5 pounds a day, I mean, you're just constantly feeding, eating all day long. And they're just putting it right in front of you, and you're just gorging yourself because you don't know when to stop. And then all of a sudden it goes from 75 degrees to 102, and you're outside, and it takes energy for them to chew. They're all black animals, so that was the majority of the ones that were died had black hides because it just absorbs that heat.
Right.
They don't have anywhere to go.
No shade.
And
no water.
Just a couple, the day prior there was some rain, so it was humid, and then no wind. So you've got heat, humidity, no breeze, black hides, heat stroke. I mean, it's pretty common sense.
Well, could it be some of the, you gotta be some gaseous stuff going on for what they ate and all that too, right?
There could be. And I mean, you got to think there's all that manure.
It's a lot of methane.
All the pictures I saw, they were extremely bloated.
Well, ruminant animals, with the, basically 4 chambers to the stomach, when, they die, those gases expand. So even if when I shot, both my elk, cause they have the same type of digestive system as cattle, it blows up right away.
Like a minute, just 10 minutes?
Not even that. I mean,
okay.
And when you're gutting them out, I mean, that stomach goes and just right out, and you want to be very careful not to puncture that because that stinks like crazy.
I try not to puncture anything when I'm cleaning an animal. I don't care what it is. I
just
know it's not ever a pleasant odor that comes out.
No, I mean, and what you have to do, on an elk, when it's that size, and I'm out there kind of by myself waiting on somebody to go get the tractor. I mean, I'll puncture just a little hole just to get that bloating to go down so I can actually get the entrails out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, especially in the heat, those gases in that stomach, they swell up like crazy because they're not farting as much, which I guess is a good thing for global warming, apparently.
Yeah.
Melts the ice caps.
But it's crazy to me because so many people are just convinced that it's a conspiracy, and they don't want to entertain any rational argument. Like, okay, I can't definitively say that they weren't poisoned, like a lot of these people are saying, but I'm like, you can't definitively say that they didn't die of heat stroke. So we have to kind of wait until they get some type of investigation done. And then if you look at the pictures, most of those cattle, I believe every one in the picture that I saw had a black hide on it. And when the nights didn't cool down, because typically, and a lot of people were like, oh, well, we have these in Arizona, and I mean, it gets hot down here, and, they don't just die.
It was more about the shift in temperature, not just that it got hot.
Right.
It's still really hot there today, but
it causes stress on an animal when you change temperature on them really quickly, especially an animal that size. And that stress, when they can't cool off at night, because those nighttime temperatures, I don't think drop below 90. I mean, it just stayed hot and steamy. And so, because I'm the first one, I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, government's got to be behind that, or there's got to be some malicious intent behind all of this. And, but I just got to looking, I'm like, from what I understand of biology, that could absolutely happen. I mean, for example, I went to load up my tractor on Friday night. and it was hot, steamy. There was no wind, and I'm out there trying to load my. I about passed out trying to load my tractor. Like I had to stop, get in my truck, turn on the AC, and be like, "Oh man, holy cow!" You know,
Holy cow! No pun intended.
no pun intended. And
Holy bloated cow, Batman.
and I don't weigh anywhere near what these cattle weigh. So my whole thing is at least be open to a rational discussion instead of just saying it's got to be this. And then arguing with me when there's solid science behind this happening. And it happens all the time. All the time. But that's something that the cattle industry just doesn't promote because it's a sad, sucky part of the job that happens, but it does. And that's how we get our food. So they try to not put that out there as much for everybody to see, obviously, because it's not a good thing. And it's just how it happens.
Yeah, I think so. There's two things that you're saying here, though, that we need to keep separate, but be cautious of. The cows were getting piggybacked onto an existing conspiracy.
Right. They're just adding to it. Oh, food.
Yeah. So this is another thing, but the farmer, or there were farmers immediately commenting, this is common. Like this, don't lump this in with everything else that you may be thinking about. This is not one of those things. This is natural. Right. This is natural. This is not unnatural.
It's something that happens.
Yeah.
And what really shocked me was, because I just got into a little discussion with somebody online because, the new me in 2022 doesn't care. And
the old nice 2021 Matt is by the wayside.
But I wasn't being mean. I was just stating fact.
Right.
And people would argue with, well, I grew up in cattle country and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, okay. I mean, I grew up next to a freaking cornfield, but I don't know everything there is to know about corn.
I mean, my granny had cows, and to my knowledge, that never happened to her. But in Louisiana or East Texas, it's always hot down there, so the cows are just used to it, I guess.
Yeah, well, and one of the arguments was, well, and this same person, was like, well, I've been to, the Middle East, and they have cattle over there. None of them just drop dead, and it gets really hot over there. And I'm like, well, I've been over there too. I've got a little bit of experience over there, and most of those cattle, believe it or not, are white.
Yeah. And the temperatures drop at night over there.
The temperatures do drop at night. It's not
way more than they do.
It's typically not humid.
And the reality is
and they're skinny. They're not huge, fat, being fattened up.
They're not big fat American cows like all the.
But that's the whole thing.
They have to walk to get to the restaurants there.
They already
Our cows drive.
They already have all the meat.
The portion size of the fattening foods that they put the cows on over there.
They are putting on. They are literally putting on fat. That's what they're putting on when they go to a feedlot.
And that feed, it wasn't like every cow in that feedlot died.
No, like it was 10,000.
There are,
which seems like a lot. And everybody's like, "Oh, the whole thing got wiped out." No, there's like hundreds of thousands.
More than on that food lot in Kansas itself. There's probably around 7 or 8 million head of cattle right now.
Yeah,
so it's not. There's assignable cause. That's what I would say. That there's an assignable cause that's outside of your conspiracy realm. That being said, do you do your grocery shopping? I know Matt doesn't do anything around his house at all, other than grow plants.
Hannah and I split it.
So eggs. Have you bought eggs?
They recently have skyrocketed.
What would you remember what a dozen eggs cost? I don't know, a month ago.
About a 180.
Yeah, and before that they were like 40 cents.
Oh, you could get them for 69 cents. They're making 40 cents at Aldi, a whole 12 pack of them or whatever. A dozen, 12 pack. A dozen. Sorry,
knocking them back.
Just like Rocky.
I gotta have my shake in the morning.
Last time I looked, this was like $3.50, almost $4.
No, Hannah came home and she was like, "Guess how much this 18 pack?" Yeah. Sorry, whatever they call it.
There's 18 dozen.
18.
These baker dozen eggs.
Dozen and a half. She's like, guess how much these were? I said, I don't want to guess. Tell me. $6.
Yeah. So now that 10,000 cows were a blip. They're not even a blip on the data. Like that's not it. That's not a supply chain impact level.
No.
The amount of chickens that have been lost over the last 3 months is astounding. Like a significant number of egg farms, chicken house slaughter, where they're growing chickens for Tyson chicken type stuff, like food. Hundreds of thousands at a time are all being wiped out.
Yep.
So we have inflation. So we're all complaining about grocery store prices due to inflation. So 8-9%, whatever it is now, 10, approaching 10. From 69 cents to $4 or $5 is not inflation. There is a supply issue, and there are a lot of, and I'm thinking just on the poultry industry, there are 30 or 40 instances, not just fires. Some of them are fires. Other ones are mass kill events where everything died.
Yep.
So there's something going on.
I will tell you part of that is
Matt's got all the answers tonight.
Kinda. And actually this just happened because I knew that prices were going to get to where they were, so I actually bought chickens for my own house to have eggs. And then I've got meat chickens.
Got some laying hens
on
That's
the way.
like listening to
I've got layers and feeders coming.
The general store at Lake Fork. Did you ever listen to that? K-Moo? They have you call in and sell stuff on the radio. And howdy, you talking to K-Moo? Yeah, I got some laying hens for sale. That crack me up. Dude, I'm telling you, these guys are awesome.
I might need to advertise a little bit.
I got some scrap metal. You come over and pick up. You take it for free if you get it all.
Because historically, selling eggs really isn't profitable. To raise that chicken up to the point to where they're laying, it costs quite a bit of money.
Yeah, typically you sell what you don't eat. So it's like, you're not doing it to make money. You just got extra eggs.
Yeah. But it's hard to make money off of that specifically, but it's kind of a gateway drug for people. Oh, I've got eggs. Hey, by the way, I've got these whole chickens that'll be ready whenever, or I've got chicken parts,
they lost
breast, thighs,
5 million chickens at a farm in Osceola, Iowa on March 31st of this year.
Yes.
5 million chickens.
Wow. Hope Chick-fil-A doesn't get it.
However,
hey man, it's coming.
There are,
that MSG is going to cost a lot of money.
do you know actually how many chickens are consumed in a day?
5 million?
Billion?
22 million chickens a day
In the world or the U.S.?
in the world.
Probably just
In
the
the
US.
world? Well, dude, the world. that makes a whole lot. It's a lot outside the world. Like chicken's but one of the only meats you can get in Haiti because
it's
chickens running around everywhere.
the most popular food.
Yeah.
How much just in the U.S.? Do you have that stat?
I don't have that stat, actually. No. However, when I ordered my chickens, I was looking, and the hatchery had they've got a YouTube page. And so I was like, well, this is kind of my first foray into actually just kind of raising chickens, from chicks all the way up and trying to gain whatever knowledge I can. And so I started watching YouTube videos, and I went to their page, and it's like, okay, here's what you need to do for this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of like Chicken 101. When you get your chicks the first day, here's what you need to do. And I was like, perfect. Okay, we're good to go. Well, the next video, it was like, this hatchery's statement on some blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, oh, well, I'll watch that. And it was just a month or so ago. And they said, they were talking that one of their farms had to be quarantined because of an avian flu. And that
So they had to kill everything there.
That killed off a bunch of stuff. And then, so one plant had to be cleared, and then this plant was quarantined and all this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of like the turkey issue that we had here in Kansas about 5-6 years ago, where there was an avian flu that went around and killed a good portion of the turkey population. And that happens in the commercial chicken production as well. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just one of those things that birds get. I mean, just like people do, you know, but it's harder for us to figure out, you know.
Until you find out that they were working on an avian flu virus in Wuhan.
Maybe. I don't know. But
I was going there. You beat me to it.
I mean, and it could be one of those things too, you know.
So what are the conspiracy theories going out there? Is this Sleepy Joe? Is this is this like health people?
See, but that's what I never.
Is this vegetarians or vegans?
That's what I never see is they always talk about they. I don't know who they is.
Yeah, who is the they?
Like nobody can ever drop back to who. Okay, who are you actually blaming for this? And let's confront them and ask them. You're going to hear from a conspiracy that nobody knows, right? I'm going to come up with
because I've seen a documentary where I think it was wineries. No, it wasn't wine. It was beehives. Beehives were getting stolen by competitors because they were making more money or whatever than them. So they were stealing each other's beehives, and crazy.
Yeah, I think Biden can't even ride a bicycle, so he's not coming up with some kind of world.
He's definitely not got the devious plans.
No.
So as we were sitting here, my brother,
unless he's like having dreams in his old age and talking out loud, and people are writing it down and doing it. You know, he's like, oh, kill all the chickens. Oh. You know, they're like, oh, kill all the chickens. We gotta go kill the chickens.
Murder kills.
I gotta read it because as we were sitting here, my brother sent me.
But I think the you're never going to know, right? But there is a push to have global leadership, no national individualism, global leadership and control, so peace could be dictated. And how can you control people if that's going to happen? Who's talked about stuff like this? And it's typically coming out of the World Economic Forum. So most of your not crazy idiot people that are saying, hey, something's going on here, it's coming from the WEF. And
now is the WEF, where are they tied to?
Themselves. It's we're smarter than everybody else, and we think we can put all this together. And
so completely separate from NATO or any other thing.
Yeah, like right. But a lot of the NATO people are participating in that. I mean, it's and more than just NATO. Like there's some stuff.
Anyway. Illuminati in there?
No.
So anyway, this meme that my brother just sent me was about Biden. It says, "Oh, come on, man. I fell off my bike because of the tires. Too much inflation."
That's pretty good.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
But anyway, my big thing is, obviously, you want to be, you want to question things.
Don't add to the crazy.
Don't add to the crazy, but you want to be cautious. You want to be looking out for things that don't smell right.
Yeah.
But
do your research. Don't say, hey, this doesn't smell right. Oh, this is part of the conspiracy. This doesn't smell right. There's something here I don't understand. Let me try to understand it.
Because you get so convinced that it's a conspiracy that you completely ignore common sense. And you can't do that. You've got to be rational and you've got to be logical about your approach to it.
So the flip side of that coin, baby formula shortage. Why did we have a baby formula shortage?
That I don't know. I know we have one.
I don't know.
You don't know? There was a plant.
Women aren't staying home enough.
Here we go.
There was a plant run by Abbott. I don't know if you know Abbott and the drug company. There's only 2, maybe 3 manufacturers out there. 2 of them do a majority of all the manufacturing baby formula. There was a bacteria that killed some infants, and one of the assumptions was that bacteria could have come from the formula. There was some commonality when they were doing the investigation. Out of an abundance of caution, the FDA came in and said, based on what we know now, we need to stop producing the baby formula at your largest factory until we know for certain that you're not introducing a bacteria into the formula that's killing these babies. They did that investigation and found, and they did all the work at the factory too. You could just kind of go through the protocol, right? May not, my kid's puking. I don't know what caused it, but we're going to go through with some Lysol and clean everything in the house. Who knows? That's the factory did that. Then they did the research and found that no, this wasn't all coming. This is not tied to the manufacturing. Under normal conditions, that would just fire back up, right? We're good. Everything's good here.
We're cleared.
There's no conspiracy. Like, that's normal protocol. The FDA, who works for the U.S. government,
Sleepy Joe,
that reports up to Joe Biden, said, you are not allowed to start your baby formula factory up. And they said, why? And there's not a good answer for that. So for weeks upon weeks, no baby formula production for no good reason other than the FDA saying you can't produce. And then it hits the news, like there's a baby formula shortage. And then they're asking in the press conferences and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, why aren't they running? Well, there's a bacteria deal. And they're like, no, if you dig beyond that answer, no, that's been resolved weeks ago and you still won't allow them to run. Well, this is the first time hearing about this at my level. I'll dig into that. So weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks are still going with the government being like, well, I don't know who, what, talk to so-and-so. And then the Biden's press secretary is like, this is the most important thing to us right now. And it's not, because they are literally holding them back from starting up and running. All the FDA protocol has been met weeks ago, months probably by now, and you got to get fired up. So then that one, that's a government deal. I don't know if it's a conspiracy or just people that are so dumb.
Ineptitude.
Yeah. They don't realize that their decisions have consequences for everybody.
Millions of people.
Yeah. Or it could be devious.
Well, I mean, I think that they've shown that they really don't care about babies. So,
well, that's true. Mm-hmm. That is true.
Speaking of not caring about babies. So here in Kansas on August 2nd, there's a vote.
Yes.
For value them both. And there's been signs up everywhere.
Right.
So
I've seen thousands of bumper
stickers, magnets,
signs,
yard signs, big signs, small signs. So out by my house, there's a little corner that a lot of people take to the lake. And there was a big sign, and I believe it's St. Joe Oast. I believe it's their property. Mm-hmm. But they had a big, probably 4x8 sign. And over Memorial Weekend, the sign got trashed, like just destroyed. And then all the signs that people had along the street were magically gone. And I'm like, I drove by. I was like, I thought that vote was in August. They're taking their stuff down already.
Conspiracy. We had wind. He's just coming up with what was the wind doing on those days?
Nope.
We've had hail since then. They could have been destroyed by hail.
The combustion due to the heat.
So they'd actually caught some folks stealing them and all this kind of stuff. And so this time, when I drove by this morning, you're not going to stop us. Not to toot our own horns, but we shut down a multi-billion-dollar energy company from bringing wind turbines into our section of the county. You think you're going to stop us with trashing a few signs? No. They brought in a huge truck today, drove telephone poles into the ground, and they put the sign at the very top of those telephone poles.
Yeah.
Like, it's way taller than like before. Like, everybody can see it now. I'm just like,
it's like the equivalent of putting concrete in your mailbox after somebody hit it with a baseball bat.
So now 4th of July weekend will remains to be seen. We'll see, because as we're recording this is after the fact, but we don't know about it yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But I'm
what that vote's about? You guys know what that vote's about?
Yeah, it's about stopping abortion.
Well, so the Supreme Court in Kansas stated in a ruling that abortion is protected under the Kansas Constitution, which is not. It's not there. So I don't know how they're coming up with this, but our surrounding states have gotten more restrictive towards the abortion centers. Like you're not going to the hospital. You're just going to go to a place that that's all we do is kill babies. So they've been shutting that down. So people are coming to Kansas because the Supreme Court said that abortions are all 100% constitutional here. So there's starting to be a whole lot of people show up here. Mm-hmm. So August 2nd, we're voting on a constitutional amendment to amend our Constitution to say that our Constitution does not say that abortion is protected. There could be a law.
Our state constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There could be a law that comes later that says it's okay. But as of right now, the vote is just saying, hey, that's not what our Constitution says. So we're going to amend the Constitution to clarify that's not what it says. So get the power back to the people that vote as opposed to the Supreme Court that says whatever they want to interpret.
Yeah.
The state Supreme Court.
Which I think is pretty telling. Somebody that's going to come destroy.
Let's argue the point. Let's not take away somebody's right to voice their opinion.
Right. But that's.
Or let's run a live wire to all of those signs from here on out. Give them a little jolt.
Hey,
little cattle prod.
I actually thought about that. A little electric fence might tune them up a little bit.
Yeah. There's videos of people doing that to their Trump signs.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And then, tacking,
awesome.
Putting nail boards, because some people are just driving through yards, knocking them down. And so they're nail boarding right under the sign. So when you drive over there, you get flats,
Nice.
It would be good for you to put one out in your yard and let Badger,
Just, hey, what are you doing here?
Get him, Badger.
Get him. Anyway,
awesome.
That's what's been on my mind.
All right.
Well, we're going to take a short break and head to top 3. 1797, establishing dominance. A young nation begins the formation of the world's most formidable fleet of naval ships with the commissioning of its first ship, the U.S. frigate Constellation. A lively blend of rosemary, lemon, and peppermint, 1797 is a great blend to start your day. It is a great awakening quality with a minty kick. Much like stepping out on a deck of a ship cruising the brisk ocean waters, this blend will give you that early morning boost. 1797, establishing dominance.
Check it out at admiralspinnet.com. Without it, you might as well shave.
All right, and we are back. We are hopping into top 3. And this is, we were talking about conspiracies. This is top 3 gun misconceptions as it pertains to the mainstream media. So, Chet,
I'll go.
what you got?
Misconception number 3. The AR-15 is the most deadly weapon ever invented in all of mankind.
Not true.
That, I'm telling you.
That is a misconception.
It is a misconception in several different ways. I mean, my goodness, from statistically speaking, it's not a big killer. There's more people killed with hammers than there are AR-15s or any long gun for that matter.
And fists and knives and
it's pistols.
Clubs. And,
Chainsaw comes to mind.
But they talk about the bullet that the AR-15 shoots as being like this,
huge
killer of all things. And I won't even deer hunt with it because it's not a big enough round for me. Like that's just not, in a deer around here is smaller than most humans. So that's a misconception.
I will say that the height of a deer and the height of a human are two different things. And the AR-15 or the
223, 5.56, whatever.
The 5.56, that caliber was actually considered for military because it was meant to maim, not right out kill somebody. And I believe that's why they adopted it. Because you had more of a chance of surviving that than the 30-06 or what, like what we were using back in the day.
But if you look at the AR-15 in general, like we all of a sudden jumped to calibers, right? And what is shot out of that. No, and the mainstream media are acting like, well, death is shot out of that. Like whatever that's pointing at when the trigger is pulled is going to die.
And that is absolutely not the case from real world scenarios. You got to pop somebody a few times most of the time.
And then kind of stemming off of that, because I realized that a lot of the folks that are trying to get assault weapons, air quotes, banned didn't get any traction. So now they're all just talking semi-automatic weapons. So the second, misconception is the semi-automatic gun is a killing machine designed as a weapon of war. Like that this is, oh my gosh, it's a semi-automatic gun. That's one of the first guns that I shot as almost a toddler, as a young grade schooler, was a semi-automatic 22. That was one of the first guns that was gifted me, was a semi-automatic 22. One of the most popular guns. You were talking about a Ruger 1022 or a Marlin Model 60. They're everywhere, and they're also quote unquote high capacity. They've been around a long time. So semi-automatic guns are not weapons of war. They're just not. Misconception number 1, the founding fathers they only wrote the Second Amendment with the intention that people would just have muskets, not what the military has. That is a huge misconception. There are, I think I wrote some notes down here. There were guns that were more than muskets when the Second Amendment was written. There were multiple repeating firearms that had been designed at that time. Ben Franklin had a deadly air rifle at that time, so not even musket related. There were guns that could shoot 7 rounds at a time. There were, I wrote this down somewhere. I don't know. I can't believe I didn't write it down. I thought I wrote it down.
Doing a good job by memory. Doing a good job.
But the cannons, there were plenty of cannons that were owned at this time as well. They had there were big piracy issues that were going on, and they conscripted people to go ahead and take your cannons out on the boat. Whatever pirate ships that you capture, all their weapons, you own them. The cannons on the pirate ship are yours. We used civilian-owned cannons in our Revolutionary War. Those weren't all of a sudden just bought for our military. They actually took those and conscripted them right into our military because they existed at the time that before our Constitution was written, before we declared independence, but we didn't have the Bill of Rights enacted yet. So all of this stuff about, oh, well, you can't have a tank. Well, you know what? When the Second Amendment was written, civilians owned as deadly as weapons as the military did. There were not military weapons that were more deadly than what civilians owned at that time. So don't tell me it's just for muskets. It was just that they knew when they wrote the Second Amendment that there was more than muskets that existed, and that civilians could own everything that the military had. Everything at that time. I'm not necessarily advocating that we all get nukes, but I'm saying you can't give the misconception that the founders were dumb and the only thing that existed at the time were muskets, and that's all they expected anybody to ever own was a musket. Well, we whooped the British with muskets and cannons and you name it, whatever we had that were already owned by the people that were here. And that is what the Second Amendment was written about, is so they could make sure that we don't get infringed upon those rights to hold those weapons in our own person. Ownership.
Yep.
Okay, that's my 3.
All right, Matt, what you got?
Misconception number 3. Bump stocks are scary. Anytime I see a news report, it's like, and there was a bump, we need to outlaw these bump stocks. I don't think they really know what a bump stock is. And
They don't.
it's
Have you ever seen a bump stock video?
stupid.
Have you? I've never seen one
I've never
that they've actually been able to do a full mag dump without it malfunctioning.
Yeah. I mean, it's meant to help you fire faster. However, it doesn't do that. It's only going to fire as fast as you can really pull the trigger. And it's still one trigger pull for one bullet. And I think that they try to make it sound automatic for the people who don't understand, because automatic is one trigger pull with a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
Semi-automatic is one trigger squeeze, one bullet. That's all you're getting. And bump stocks make you incredibly inaccurate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not a tactical. I mean, if it was a tactical thing, we would have them, right? It's not. It's more of a cool factor.
And a way to waste a lot of ammunition that's very expensive.
Yeah, really fast. But inaccurately really fast. So get over the bump stocks. I mean, I hear so many people saying get rid of those, and I know Trump said something about getting rid of them or wanting to do away with them or did make them whatever. Who cares? They're nothing. Your real shooters don't have that stuff on their gun. Number 2 is that definition of automatic and semi-automatic. I saw that one guy, and I know that that's a really popular video that shows up with the pro-gun crowd of that congressman trying to handle the weapon, and it's like, oh, this thing shoots 3,000 rounds a second, and
the ghost gun guy, yeah,
and it's like, that thing doesn't even shoot 3,000 rounds in a minute, and so I mean,
know how much 3,000 rounds weighs?
You're going to be carrying a lot of ammo, but at least clarify that to where, I mean, automatic weapons, can you own them? Yes, but there is a background check, fingerprints. It's no different than a suppressor, which is just a whole nother story. I don't even understand why a suppressor is even categorized as a class 3, because it's not a firearm. It's a component, which
that helps your hearing protection. I mean,
I mean, it's so stupid. Whatever. That one gets me. And kind of along with you, well, I guess kind of tied into number 2 is that the AR is specifically designed as a weapon of war and murder, and its sole purpose is to kill. I would say any gun could have the purpose to kill if the person behind it had the intention to kill.
And just about every gun that's existed has been used in a war. So what's this weapon of war business?
It makes no sense. I mean, they're trying to drum up people that, are like
swords. Swords are weapons of war.
Yes. Let's get rid of swords and knives and
hammers.
Hammers have been used.
The mace thing, with the
hatchets.
chain and the ball.
We got to get rid of hatchets.
Weapons
I
of
know
war.
I've seen The Patriot. I know hatchets can be dangerous.
Yes.
And beat rifles because you slide them down and kill the guy. And then my number 1 was kind of along the same lines as you, is everybody all of a sudden now seems to think that, well, that's not what they meant when they wrote the Second Amendment. And I don't see how anybody, even if you look at when that was written and what they had just went through, they wanted to set that up because that's exactly what they were fighting against, was tyranny. They wanted people moving forward to be able to equally defend themselves against a tyrannical government. Yep. That's exactly what it was there for. That's why it was written. And people, they meant militia, so, like that's the National Guard. And I go, the National Guard's part of the government. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely not. That's why we're here. Because if we were to be invaded, we're fortunate enough to have a huge military that we probably wouldn't have to be involved. But if we did, we have that option.
What was Zelensky asking for to send to Ukraine after Russia invaded? Guns.
Guns and ammo.
We need guns and ammo to hand to our citizens.
Yeah.
And what, we're just going to...
I'll tell you, there's a funny clip on the internet. Happened about a month ago. They're debating this after the Uvalde shooting, and Chip Roy, congressman from Texas, just lights into why the Second Amendment exists for defense against a tyrannical government. Well, Jerry Nadler, was like shocked. Did you just say that the reason the Second Amendment exists so you could have guns to shoot our military? Like, you want to shoot our military people, our men and women in the military? That's why the Second exists, so you could shoot them? Like, he was like making this big deal about it. And he's like, that's what tyranny is, when the government turns against the people and the people start shooting the government. Like, that's how we had the revolution, Jerry. Like,
Yeah.
That's what went down.
Did you read your history book, Jerry?
No, he did not. But that's part of it, right? I mean,
He read the rewritten version where it's not in there.
No, he thought he had a soundbite against a Republican saying that the Republicans were calling for all of us to shoot the military.
Right. No,
I
get it.
Just idiot.
so,
sorry.
but it's so stupid. But again, it's like you got these people in government that have no idea what a firearm is. They don't know how to handle it. They've never shot one. They don't have any experience with one. Or you've got the people that grew up, and maybe went, they're like, most of these people in government are rich anyway.
Yeah.
So they came from rich families where they may have gone quail hunting or pheasant hunting on a weekend with their, double barrel shotgun and whatever. And that's firearms to them. And not the case. The Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with hunting. The second you bring hunting into it, your argument is void with me.
Yeah.
Because it has to do with the tyrannical government. Every government that has taken away their citizens' guns has ultimately
stepped across that line.
Exterminated people.
Yeah.
And, they're like, and people say, oh, well, like, look at this country and look at this country. I'm like, it hasn't happened yet. It will. I mean, if you look at Australia, they rounded everybody's gun up and took them away. But look what happened during COVID. I mean, they wrecked those people.
Yep.
Because they were defenseless. And, I know it's a radical theme, but I do believe the government should fear the people. I think they should have a healthy respect for the people that they're there to serve. And if they're going to overstep their bounds and say that, hey, you can't feed your family, or because of this, we're going to come take your kids because of some whatever reason that we believe that you're not a good parent.
Yeah, or you're not letting them go to public schools anymore where we can indoctrinate them. That's against the law all of a sudden. Now we're going to come take your kids because you won't put them there.
And there's going to be a gunfight. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, that's because that's what that's there for.
Yeah.
Anyway, I get fired up. There's whatever.
Just a little bit.
Are you on number one?
No, he's done. Yeah, he's over.
Okay.
He gave a number 3, a number 2, a number 1, and a
5,
number 1.
10, 11, whatever.
Right.
We had 2 number 1s on that one.
All right. Well, my number 3 is stricter laws will solve the problem.
That's a good one.
They never do.
No, they don't.
We already have a really strict law on murder.
Right. People keep getting killed.
It doesn't stop it. Drugs are illegal. We have really stringent drug laws. And matter of fact, they're
and the opioid crisis is rising.
Yeah, but they're running some of those back, and they're like, "Hey, let's make this legal. Let's give these people syringes, and let's make places where they can shoot up safely."
Right.
But let's end the drug war.
Oh, idiots.
That's a good one though.
Yeah.
We just need more laws.
We need more laws.
The fact that they don't enforce the laws that are on the book. Oh, well, let's not talk about that. It's a felony if you are already a felon and you try to buy, even try to attempt to buy one, let alone to possess one.
Yeah.
Not even just own one, just to have it in your possession.
That leads me to number 2.
Okay.
Criminals buy guns. This is a misconception because criminals do not buy guns. They get guns off the black market or they steal guns. So laws take guns away from good law-abiding citizens.
Well, yeah, I want to be a good citizen. I don't want to break the law.
The criminals are going to get the guns where they're buying them on the black market or they're stealing them.
Or lying and getting them. Which,
Yeah.
there's a guy, I think what's his first name? For Hunter? Last name Biden? Felon. Actually owns a gun. And nobody's doing anything about it.
And his sister takes showers with his dad. It's crazy. Anyway,
Gross.
old news.
Sick news.
Number one, and you kind of touched on this, Matt. Guns kill people. Huge misconception because people kill people. Guns do not kill people.
Inanimate objects, very rarely, on their own accord, do any
Very rarely.
verb.
Right.
Right.
I wish my AR would go shopping.
I've
Run some
never,
errands.
I've never seen that. I've never seen, just hey, what are you doing out of the safe? I'm just going to get some bread, man.
Get back in there.
No. Take those rounds out.
Oh, yeah.
Make yourself safe.
So if you agree or disagree with any of these, we'd love to hear your comments. Matt will comment back at all those. So
100%.
ahead.
If you disagree with any of these, I will be right there to comment.
So go ahead and drop that in there.
I'm waiting for Broughton to take the devil's advocate on this, and we'll see.
No comment.
All right, Chet, what you got?
All right.
A good word there from the chosen.
Day 25. Trust him. Ask and trust him. So there's 3 passages that we're going to read through today. Matthew 17:20. Jesus said to them, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." John 14:13 through 14 says, "Whatever you ask in my," Jesus is talking here, "whatever you ask in my name, this I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it." And then 1 John 5:14 through 15. "This is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, and whatever we ask, we know that we have the request that we have asked of him." So the story that goes along with this is the writer in this specific one has a child that's autistic, and they found that out after about 3 years, nonverbal type stuff, and it basically she had a friend, and I'm going to use air quotes around the friend because it's not very friendly. The reason that your kid has autism is because you haven't prayed and had enough faith for the autism to be removed. And people that are like that typically quote one of the 3 passages that I just read to you, and thinking that having a relationship with Christ means that you have this golden American Express card that can wipe away whatever you want to be wiped away, or to add whatever you want to be added. So if there is an issue in your home, or with your kids, or with a relationship, or with your job, the only reason that issue exists is because you haven't asked for that issue to be removed, because it says there in John, whatever you ask, I'll do that, and it says your faith is, if you just have faith of a mustard seed, which is one of the tiniest seeds out there.
I think it is the tiniest.
You can move mountains. So if your faith is smaller than that, you can't even get your kid healed of autism. Like, that's what the Bible says. And how misconstrued people use scripture in these passages. And again, I'm just reading the verses that are not in the full context.
Right.
But 1 John, it's hard to get away from the context that's there. It says, if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And then if you look at the second passage that I read, it's talking about God being glorified, the Father being glorified. So our requests are heard if we're in alignment with what God is wanting. That's exactly what it's talking about there. And I always find it interesting that a majority of our Christian brothers and sisters that talk about lack of faith with issues is typically pointed at mental issues, not physical issues. So autism, depression, anxiety, like, oh, your relationship with God isn't that good. And then that same person that's saying your relationship with God is not good because you have somebody in your family that suffers from anxiety is also going to the doctor to get a flu shot. And you're like, well, how does that even box? Well, there's a pretty big stigma in the church on mental health issues. And they're, oh, that's a relationship with God deal. Oh, I have cancer. We need to pray that I get to see the right oncologist to have this treated. Oh, your kid has autism. Look, faith of mustard seed. You just pray that away. You know, it's totally pointed in the wrong direction with that. So that's something that I've seen this out there and know some friends that have experienced those same kind of comments. But what the study goes on to say is like, look, this is not what it's saying is that you have this credit card to remove everything that's out there. It's, you need to be focused on what God's will is. And if there is something that is hindering you from achieving God's will, ask him and it's going to be gone. And that's the mountain moving. That's the faith in him that's going to happen for God to be glorified, not for you, not for your life to be easier, not for you not to have struggles, not for your kid not to have that one issue or, you know, multiple issues. It's for God's glory, not for your benefit. So anyway,
it's good.
Yes. Have faith in him. Trust him. Trust him when you ask him, as long as what you're asking is to glorify him and to further his will for you.
Yeah. So confession, like I personally have never had any mental issues with depression. I have dealt with some anxiety in recent years. I attributed that to getting older and just taking on more responsibility and having those issues. But before I met a good friend of mine, John Gordon is his name. But he's a strong man of God. He's co-pastor of the church that I attend. But he really got me out of that mindset that you just kind of explained, where it's like, oh, you just got to have enough faith. You know, you can pray anything out of your life and everything. But he really explained mental health and mental illness to me in a way I could understand it, to where, yeah, it's not something that you just pray away. And as far as
it's a legitimate deal.
Yeah, it's a legitimate deal. And it's, I mean, God gave us doctors and medicines to help us with certain things too, right? And so I firmly believe that those things are out there to help us as well.
Yeah.
You can't just pray it away. God, it's like the guy floating in the ocean that says, I'm waiting on a sign from God. He's going to save me.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on God to save me, but you know, he sent him a sailor and he sent him a helicopter and he sent him.
No, I'm waiting on God.
Wait, I'm just going to pray
Yeah.
and God will save me. You know, it's that same analogy I think I've used on this show before. But yeah, don't be so blind to think that you can just pray everything away. God gives you.
And a perfect example of that happening in Scripture is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane the night before he was crucified, praying for the cup to be taken from him.
Yeah.
And being so stressed out about it that he was sweating blood.
Sweating and crying blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But who was getting glorified?
Through all of the pain and suffering he was about to have, God was
being glorified. Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.